Family dinners in our house have always been a performance, each of us playing our well-rehearsed roles. I was the responsible one, the peacekeeper, the one who made sure the roast didn't burn and the wine glasses stayed full. But that night, as I set the table and listened to the clatter of silverware, I felt a knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. Something was different. Maybe it was the way my mother kept glancing at me, or the way my father's laughter sounded a little too forced. Or maybe it was just the secret I'd been carrying, heavy and silent, for weeks. My sister, Claire, breezed in late as usual, her perfume trailing behind her like a flag. She hugged our parents, barely glancing at me, and took her place at the table as if she owned it. I watched her, remembering how we used to be inseparable as kids before life and choices and old resentments got in the way. Now every word between us felt loaded, every smile a little too sharp. Dinner started with the usual small talk work. Whether the neighbor's new dog, I tried to focus on my plate, rehearsing in my mind how I would finally tell them the truth about the house. But before I could open my mouth, Claire set down her fork, cleared her throat, and announced, "I've decided I'm moving in. Next month, I need a fresh start. And this house is perfect." The room went silent. My mother's eyes widened. My father's fork froze midair. I felt the blood drain from my face. Claire smiled, oblivious, already planning her new life under this roof. But what my sister didn't know was that everything was about to change. Our family story is written into the walls of that house. Every creak in the floorboards, every faded photograph in the hallway, every scratch on the kitchen table, each one a memory, a moment, a piece of us. My parents bought the house when I was 5 and Claire was 3, back when they still believed in forever. I remember the day we moved in, Claire and I racing through empty rooms, our laughter echoing, our futures wide open. Back then, the house felt enormous, a castle built just for us. Growing up, I was always the one who followed the rules. I did my homework at the kitchen counter while Claire snuck out the back door to meet friends. I learned to cook when Mom went back to work, made sure the bills were paid when Dad lost his job, and kept the peace when arguments flared. Claire was the wild one, the dreamer, the one who always seemed to land on her feet no matter how hard she fell. Our parents called me their rock. Sometimes I wondered if that just meant I was the one who held everything together while everyone else drifted away. The house became my anchor, especially after my parents' marriage started to unravel. I was the one who stayed, who patched the roof and mowed the lawn, who made sure the holidays still happened even when no one felt like celebrating. Claire moved out at 19, chasing adventure and freedom, leaving me behind with the ghosts and the responsibilities. She'd come back for visits, always with stories of new jobs, new cities, new boyfriends. I envied her sometimes, her ability to let go, to start over, to never look back. But as the years passed, the house started to feel less like a home and more like a burden. The repairs piled up, the taxes grew steeper, and my own life felt like it was on hold. I watched friends get married, travel, build families of their own, while I stayed rooted in place, afraid to let go of the only thing that felt stable. My parents grew older, their health declining, and the weight of their expectations pressed down on me. I told myself I was doing the right thing, that someone had to keep the family together. But deep down, I wondered if I was just afraid of what would happen if I finally put myself first. Claire and I grew apart, our conversations turning brittle and brief. She saw me as controlling. I saw her as reckless. We both resented the roles we'd been assigned, but neither of us knew how to break free. The house became a symbol of everything we couldn't say, a battleground for old wounds and unspoken fears. Then, a few months ago, everything changed. A medical emergency, a job loss, a series of bills I couldn't pay. Suddenly, the house was slipping through my fingers. I tried to hold on, tried to find a way out, but in the end, I had to make a choice. I sold the house, quietly, to a kind couple who promised to love it as much as we had. I told myself it was just a building, that memories couldn't be sold. But as I sat at that dinner table, listening to Claire's announcement, I realized I hadn't just lost a house, I'd lost the illusion that I could keep our family together forever. And now, the truth was about to come crashing in. The silence, after Claire's announcement, stretched on, thick and uncomfortable. My mother was the first to recover, her voice bright and brittle. "Oh, Claire, that's wonderful. It'll be so nice to have you home for a while. You know, your old room is just as you left it." She glanced at me, her eyes searching for approval, as if I were the gatekeeper to this new arrangement. I forced a smile, my heart pounding. Yeah, it'll be different, I managed, my voice barely steady. I could feel Claire's gaze on me, sharp and assessing, as if she was waiting for me to object, but I couldn't find the words. Not yet. Dad cleared his throat, pushing his plate away. It's about time you settled down, Claire. Maybe your sister can help you get back on your feet. The implication stung. I'd always been the fallback plan, the one expected to pick up the pieces. I wanted to protest, to say that I wasn't sure I could be that person anymore, but the words caught in my throat. Claire shrugged, her tone light, but her eyes hard. I just need a place to regroup for a few months. I figured it wouldn't be a problem. I mean, you're not going anywhere, right? She said it like a joke, but there was an edge to her voice, a challenge. I wondered if she sensed that something was off, or if she was just used to getting her way. I busied myself with clearing plates, needing something to do with my hands. As I moved around the table, I caught snippets of conversation, my mother reminiscing about Claire's high school friends, my father grumbling about the state of the garden. No one asked how I felt about any of it. No one noticed the way my hands shook or the way I kept glancing at the clock, counting down the minutes until I could escape. Claire followed me into the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a smirk. You look tense, sis. Don't tell me you're not excited to have me back under your roof. Her words were teasing, but there was a bite to them. A reminder of every time she'd accused me of being uptight or controlling. I set the plates in the sink, trying to keep my voice even. It's just a lot to take in. You didn't really give anyone a heads up. She rolled her eyes. Come on, it's not like you have a ton going on here. You love this house. You love taking care of everyone. I'm just giving you another project. She laughed, but I could hear the resentment underneath. To her, my stability was a cage. To me, her freedom was a threat. I wanted to tell her the truth right then. To blurt out that the house wasn't mine anymore, that I couldn't save her this time. But I saw the hope in her eyes, the way she looked at the house as if it were a lifeboat. I couldn't bring myself to shatter that. Not yet. Back at the table, our parents were already making plans, talking about repainting Claire's room, rearranging the furniture, even hosting a welcome-back dinner for her friends. I felt invisible, my own needs and fears swallowed up by their excitement. I tried to speak up, to remind them that things had changed, but every time I opened my mouth, someone talked over me. The conversation turned to money, as it always did. Dad asked if I could help cover some repairs, and Mom mentioned the rising property taxes. Claire chimed in, promising to chip in once she got back on her feet. I felt the walls closing in, the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. Inside, I was screaming. I wanted to tell them that I couldn't be the responsible one anymore, that I was drowning, that I needed help, but I was terrified of disappointing them, of being seen as weak or selfish. I'd spent my whole life trying to hold everything together, and now it was all slipping through my fingers. As the evening wore on, the tension simmered just beneath the surface. Old wounds reopened. Claire joked about my control issues. Mom reminisced about the time I canceled my own plans to take care of everyone. Dad reminded me how grateful I should be for the house. Each comment was a tiny cut, a reminder of the roles we'd never been able to escape. I watched my family laugh and plan, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I knew I couldn't keep the truth hidden much longer. I never expected what my family would say when they found out the truth. It happened suddenly, as these things always do. One moment, I was sitting at the table nodding along as my mother listed all the things we'd need to fix before Claire moved in. The next, I felt something inside me snap, a thin, fraying thread finally giving way. I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep carrying this secret alone. I set my fork down, the clink louder than I intended. My hands trembled, but I forced myself to look at each of them in turn. There's something I need to tell you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. They all turned to me, surprised. Claire arched an eyebrow, her lips already forming a quip, but I pressed on before she could speak. The house, it's not mine anymore. I sold it a couple months ago. For a moment, no one moved. The words seemed to hang in the air, heavy and impossible. Then, all at once, the room erupted. My mother's face went pale, her hand flying to her mouth. You sold the house without telling us? Her voice was thin, trembling with disbelief. My father's eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched. What? Do you mean you sold it? This is our family home. How could you do that? Claire shot to her feet, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. You're joking, right? Please tell me you're joking. You can't just sell the house. Where? Are we supposed to go? Where am I supposed to go? I tried to explain, my words tumbling out in a rush. I didn't have a choice. I lost my job, the bills were piling up, and the repairs. I couldn't keep up. I tried to find another way, but you didn't even ask us. Claire's voice was sharp, almost shrill. You just decided, all on your own, to throw away everything. You know how much this place means to us? I felt the sting of her words, the accusation in her eyes. I know it means a lot. It means everything to me too. But I was drowning, Claire. I couldn't do it anymore. I thought I was protecting you, all of you, from the stress. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed. My father slammed his fist on the table, making the dishes rattle. You should have come to us. We could have helped. You had no right to make that decision alone. I looked at him, tears burning in my eyes. I've been making decisions alone for years. Every time something went wrong, I was the one who had to fix it. I didn't want to burden you. I didn't want to admit I couldn't handle it. My mother's voice was small, almost childlike. Where will we go for holidays? What about all our memories? I swallowed hard, guilt and shame twisting inside me. The new owners are kind. They said we could visit if we wanted, but it's not ours anymore. I'm sorry. So sorry. Claire shook her head, her face flushed with anger. You always have to be the martyr, don't you? Always making decisions for everyone else, always acting like you're the only one who cares. Well, congratulations. Phew. We've finally ruined everything. Her words hit me like a slap. I wanted to defend myself, to scream that I'd done my best, that I'd sacrificed so much for this family. But I was too tired, too raw. I just sat there staring at the table, listening to the sound of my family falling apart. My father stood up, his chair scraping back. I need some air, he muttered, storming out of the room. My mother followed, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Claire glared at me, her eyes bright with unshed tears, before grabbing her bag and slamming the door behind her. And just like that, I was alone. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, felt cold and empty. I pressed my hands to my face, trying to steady my breathing. But the tears came anyway, hot, silent, unstoppable. I thought telling the truth would set me free. Instead, it shattered everything I'd tried so hard to protect. But the worst was yet to come. The days after that dinner blurred together, each one heavy with silence and unanswered calls. I woke up the next morning to a house that felt foreign, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. My parents didn't come by, and Claire's name flashed on my phone only once, her message short, sharp, and final. I can't believe you did this. Don't contact me. I stared at the screen, the words burning into me, and wondered if I'd ever be able to fix what I'd broken. My mother was the first to reach out, but not with comfort. She left a voicemail, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and heartbreak. I just don't understand, honey. Why didn't you trust us? We could have figured something out together. I feel like I don't even know you. I listened to it over and over, guilt gnawing at me, wishing I could go back and do things differently. But I also felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd finally dropped a weight I'd been carrying for years, even if it meant standing alone. Dad, on the other hand, retreated into silence. He didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up for his usual Saturday coffee. I imagined him pacing in his apartment, replaying every decision I'd made, every sign he might have missed. I knew he was angry, but I also knew that anger was just a mask for his disappointment. He'd always expected me to be the strong one, the one who never faltered. Now I'd let him down in the worst way. Claire's reaction was the hardest to bear. She posted online about family betrayal and losing everything because of someone else's selfishness. Friends and distant relatives reached out, some offering sympathy, others thinly veiled judgment. I wanted to defend myself, to explain the years of sacrifice and sleepless nights, but I knew it would only make things worse. Claire had always been good at rallying people to her side, painting herself as the victim. I was left with a role. I'd always played the silent, responsible one, absorbing everyone else's pain. But not everyone turned away. My friend Julia, who'd seen me through every high and low, showed up at my door with coffee and a bag of pastries. She didn't ask questions or offer advice. She just sat with me in the quiet, letting me cry until there was nothing left. "Did what you had to do," she said softly, squeezing my hand. "You can't save everyone, no matter how hard you try." Her words were a balm, a reminder that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as alone as I felt. Still, the guilt lingered. I replayed every conversation, every decision, searching for the moment when I could have chosen differently. I wondered if I'd been selfish, if I'd given up too soon. But then I'd remember the sleepless nights, the mounting bills, the way the house had started to feel like a prison instead of a sanctuary. I'd done what I thought was right, even if no one else could see it. Claire, meanwhile, refused to let go. She sent angry texts accusing me of ruining her life, of taking away her last chance at a fresh start. "You always get to decide," she wrote. "You never think about what anyone else wants." Her entitlement stung, but it also made me realize how different we really were. I'd spent my life putting everyone else first, while Claire had always chased her own happiness, no matter the cost. The contrast between us had never been clearer. I was raw, exposed, forced to confront my own vulnerability for the first time. Claire was furious, lashing out, unwilling to accept that sometimes life doesn't bend to our will. My parents were caught in the middle, torn between anger and grief, unsure how to move forward. In the quiet moments, I found myself feeling something unexpected relief. The secret was out. The burden was gone. For the first time in years, I could breathe, even if each breath was tinged with sadness. I didn't know what would happen next or if my family would ever forgive me. But I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. The only way out was through. The silence from my family stretched on, but instead of letting it suffocate me, I started to see it as space to think, to breathe, to finally ask myself what I wanted. For the first time in years, I wasn't scrambling to fix someone else's mess or patch up old wounds. I was just still. And in that stillness, something inside me shifted. I started small. I called Julia and told her everything, every fear, every sleepless night, every moment I'd felt trapped by the house and the expectations that came with it. She listened, really listened. And when I finished, she said, "You don't owe anyone your happiness, not even your family." Her words echoed in my mind for days. I realized I needed more than just a friend's support. I found a therapist, someone who didn't know my family, who could help me untangle the guilt and resentment I'd been carrying for so long. In those sessions, I learned to name my boundaries, to recognize the difference between love and obligation. I started to see that my worth wasn't tied to how much I could endure or how many problems I could solve. With each passing day, I grew a little stronger, a little braver. I stopped apologizing for things that weren't my fault. I stopped answering every call, every text, the moment they came in. I let myself rest, let myself grieve, let myself hope for something better. Then, one afternoon, I called Claire. My hands shook as I dialed, but I knew it was time. She answered on the third ring, her voice cold and guarded. "What do you want?" "Want to talk," I said, steadying my breath. "Not to fight, just to talk." It was a long pause, then a sigh. "Fine, say what you need to say." Told her the truth, not just about the house, but about everything. How I'd felt alone, overwhelmed, desperate to keep our family together. How I'd made mistakes, but I'd done my best. I told her I loved her, but I couldn't keep sacrificing myself to make everyone else comfortable. "I need to take care of myself now, Claire. I hope you can understand that." It was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer, almost vulnerable. I thought you'd always be there. I didn't realize how hard it was for you." "I know," I said gently, "but I can't be everything for everyone anymore. Hope you find your own way too." We didn't solve everything in that conversation, but it was a start. For the first time, I felt like I was speaking for myself, not just reacting to everyone else's needs. After I hung up, I felt lighter. I knew there would be more hard conversations, more moments of doubt, but I also knew I was finally living my own life, not just the one my family expected of me. I never imagined what would happen when I finally stood up for myself. In the weeks that followed, the air between my family and me shifted less, like a storm, more like the uneasy calm that comes after. My parents didn't rush to forgive, but they didn't shut me out either. My mother called one evening, her voice softer, tinged with sadness. but also something like understanding. "I wish you'd told us sooner," she said, "but I see now how much you were carrying. I'm sorry we didn't notice. It wasn't absolution, but it was a start." I told her I loved her, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like she heard me. Dad took longer. He was always the one who struggled with change, who clung to the idea of family as something unbreakable. But even he couldn't ignore the truth forever. One Saturday, he showed up at my apartment with a box of old photos and a bag of groceries. He didn't say much, just sat with me on the couch, flipping through pictures of birthdays and holidays. The house in the background of every memory. "We made a lot of good times there," he said quietly. "But maybe it's time for new ones." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes, grateful for the olive branch. Claire and I were still finding our way. Our conversations were cautious, sometimes awkward, but there was a new honesty between us. She admitted she'd felt lost, that she'd counted on the house and on me to always be there as a safety net. "I guess I never really thought about what you needed," she said one afternoon, her voice small. "I'm sorry." Forgave her, and in doing so, felt something inside me. Lucina, not of resentment I'd carried for years. We all had to adjust to the new reality. Holidays were different, smaller, sometimes held in my apartment or at a restaurant. The old house belonged to someone else now. And while that loss still ached, it no longer defined me. I realized that home wasn't a place or a set of walls. It was the people I chose to let in, the boundaries I set, the life I built for myself. I started to fill my days with things that brought me joy, not just obligation. I took a painting class, traveled to a city I'd always wanted to see, let myself dream about a future that wasn't weighed down by the past. I found freedom in the space I'd carved out for myself, in the knowledge that I could survive heartbreak and still find hope on the other side. My family was still my family, imperfect and sometimes messy, but we were learning to be honest with each other, to ask for what we needed instead of assuming or resenting. There were still hard days, moments, when the old patterns threatened to pull us back in. But I was different now. I knew how to say no, how to ask for help, how to forgive not just them, but myself. Losing the house had felt like losing everything. But in the end, it gave me back something I didn't know I'd lost. My own sense of self, my own definition of home. And as I looked around at the life I was building, realized I was exactly where I was meant to be. Looking back, realized that losing the house was never really about bricks and mortar. It was about letting go of the roles I'd clung to for so long. For years, I believed that being the responsible one meant sacrificing my own needs. That love was measured by how much I could endure. But the truth is, boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. They're bridges that allow us to meet each other honestly, without resentment or fear. I learned that it's okay to ask for help, to admit when you're overwhelmed, to say no when something isn't right for you. I learned that isn't something you earn by carrying everyone else's burdens, something you discover when you finally put some of that care back into yourself. My family didn't fall apart because I let go. In many ways, we finally started to come together, not as perfect versions of ourselves, but as real, flawed people learning to love each other in new ways. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt trapped by expectations, whether from your family, your job, or even yourself, I hope you know you're not alone. It's never too late to choose yourself, to set boundaries, to start over. The people who truly love you will find a way to meet you where you are, even if it takes time. And if you think this story was dramatic, just wait until you hear what happened next, because life, as I've learned, always has another twist waiting around the corner. So hold on to hope, trust your own voice, and remember, sometimes letting go is the bravest thing you can do.